Every year, millions of people visit Rocky Mountain National Park. It's great to have so many people come and enjoy this amazing place that we love so dearly. For some people, it's a life-changing experience. For others, it's time to unwind and remember what's really important in life. And others come and begin to experience the interconnectedness of our world. The vast majority of people who come to Rocky are absolutely wonderful, and we're so glad they're here. But some visitors leave us shaking our heads, either due to their disregard of others or their negative impact on this special place. So today, I'm going to share with you 5 things not to do when visiting Rocky Mountain National Park. Now, the first thing not to do is to drive like a flatlander. I know, you're probably coming from a world without mountains, with flat, straight roads, and so driving up on the narrow and curvy mountain roads with steep drop-offs can be quite intimidating. It's normal to feel a bit nervous and to drive more slowly, but there are some things that you can do to be a better mountain driver. The first is to begin using the pullovers. We don't have many passing lanes in the mountains. It's simply too expensive to build additional lanes in this terrain, and the roads are rarely straight for long enough to have passing zones. So what we have instead are places where you can pull your car over and allow the vehicles behind you to pass. Now, these are placed regularly all along the highways and throughout the national park. Now, there is an expectation that if you have cars behind you, that you use these pullovers and let folks go by. In fact, there's even a law in Colorado that if you have 5 or more cars behind you, that you must pull over when it is safe to do so. Now, I pull over at the next pullover whenever I have someone on my tail. It's so easy to do and makes for a much better driving experience for everyone. Now, another thing to keep in mind when driving in the mountains is that you should not stop in the middle of the road to watch wildlife. Can you imagine if someone did that on a highway where you live? Now, the only time you should stop in the road is if there are wildlife in the process of crossing that road. You should then resume driving as soon as they have crossed. Now, if you want to watch the wildlife, then simply find a safe place to pull over and park. Just be sure it's not on vegetation. Then, walk back to where you saw the wildlife and watch from a safe distance. If you do these 2 simple things, use pullovers and not block the road to see wildlife, you will make driving a much better experience for everyone. In fact, locals might even think that you're an experienced mountain driver. Number 2, do not approach wildlife. Many visitors to the national park do not really believe that the wildlife is wild. I once had a guy come into my gallery in downtown Estes Park, and he said that he'd been walking the streets for an hour trying to find the trailers. And we said, "What trailers are you looking for?" And he responded that he was looking for the trailers that they use to bring the elk into town and then to take them back at night. He didn't understand that the elk that roam the streets are not from some fenced-in zoo, but are completely wild. Yes, you may see them next to the roads or even in the town of Estes Park or Grand Lake, but that is simply because we've built roads and houses in areas where they have lived for centuries. The animals you see are not tame and can actually be very dangerous, from chipmunks carrying diseases like the hantavirus or the plague, to the mother elk to protect their young who will trample you before you can blink. The wildlife must be respected and enjoyed from a safe distance. They must be allowed to go about their life without disturbance by us. Now, in general, it's recommended that you keep a distance of about 75 feet from elk and bighorn sheep, and that's about 2 bus lengths. For moose and bears, you should keep a distance of at least 3 bus lengths. If you notice an animal turn to look at you, that means you're getting too close and should back away. It should also go without saying that there is never a good time to feed a wild animal. They survive just fine without us, and if we begin feeding them, they will no longer be wild. They'll develop a dependence on humans and may start to get aggressive around people in their pursuit of food. When that happens, the animal has to be killed. Furthermore, some of the foods that we eat cannot be digested by wild animals and can make them very ill. For the well-being of these animals, give them space and do not feed them. It is actually illegal to feed wildlife in Rocky Mountain National Park or even to approach wildlife. Now, pay attention to this one. Don't leave anything behind or take anything from the national park. Now, the main thing that people leave behind is trash. Now, most of the trash you may find on the trail was accidentally dropped. To avoid this, when you get up from a break on the trail, take a look around and see if there's anything you accidentally dropped. Be sure to pick up the microtrash as well, those little corners of wrapper and even tiny bits of food that may have fallen. Also, check that the pockets on your jacket and your backpack are fully zipped up, as this is how we often drop trash. Now, one area where people get confused is with natural trash, such as banana peels, apple cores, orange peels, sunflower seed shells, etc. Now, all of these should be packed out. They take a lot longer to deteriorate than you might expect. For example, a simple banana peel can take up to 2 years to biodegrade in the mountains due to how dry it is up here. Such natural waste is not only an eyesore for other visitors, but it can actually make the wildlife ill, as their bodies are not able to process it. So pack it out. Now, the other thing I often see out there is toilet paper. Yuck. You may not like this, but you need to bring a Ziploc bag and pack out your toilet paper. Animals will find it or dig it up and use it to line their dens and nests, which can make them ill. So pack it out. Anything you bring into the park, you need to take out of the park. Now, another thing not to leave are marks on trees. I'm seeing this more and more where people are carving their initials into tree trunks. Don't do it. It changes this place from a beautiful wilderness into feeling like the back alley of an inner city. Now, the other problem we have is with people not leaving things, but rather taking things. Please don't pick the flowers or any other plant. Let them grow and flourish. Remember that by picking a flower, you're removing the seeds which are needed for future generations. Leave them as you found them. If you come across antlers from an elk or a deer, leave them too, as many small animals depend on these for nutrients. You also want to leave rocks, pine cones, feathers, and anything else that you find in the wilderness. Remember that small acts by individuals can have big impacts in places like this where there are millions of visitors. Number 4, don't trash the trails. Rocky Mountain National Park has over 300 miles of hiking trails. Yet over the last couple of decades, many of these trails have seen a lot of abuse. One of the big problems we see are people taking shortcuts in areas where there are switchbacks. Now, I understand you're coming down the trail, you're tired, and you think you can save a few seconds by cutting a line straight down rather than winding down the switchbacks. The problem with this is that it leads to severe erosion on the trails. Each step on those steep slopes loosens the soil, and with the next rainfall, that area begins to wash away. In a short period of time, these switchback areas become unstable and need to be rebuilt at great time and expense. Now, the other way that trails get trashed is when people decide that the trail is too rocky, too wet, too muddy, and so walk on the vegetation alongside the trail. The trail then becomes wider and wider as the trail erodes. In fact, I know some trails that were just 1.5 feet wide, which are now 5 to 10 feet wide in places. Try to stay on the main trail, even if it is rocky or muddy. That's one of the reasons why we wear hiking boots. In fact, muddy boots are a badge of honor and show that you're a real hiker. Now, number 5, don't make a racket. Rocky Mountain National Park is a place where nature is allowed to thrive with limited impact by humans. It's one of the few places in our nation where the natural world is allowed to operate relatively undisturbed. Have you ever noticed the volume of the natural world? It is so much quieter than our towns and cities. When you enter into the wild, enter into the sound level of the natural world. Listen and pay attention to what is happening around you. You'll hear so much more and then see so much more than you ever knew was even there. Try not to raise your voice or yell. Respect the natural world and also the experience of other visitors who have come to have a real encounter with nature. It'll actually do you a lot of good. Sometimes I come across hikers playing music over speakers. They're disturbing other visitors and the natural world around them. If you're nervous about being in nature and feel like you need music to feel safe, then put earbuds in. Also, when you visit a national park, don't bring a loud vehicle. This morning I was in the middle of the elk rut with elk bugling, but it was all disturbed by the sound of a motorcycle about a mile away. Its noise echoed through the valley for about 5 minutes, disturbing wildlife and people for more than a mile in every direction. If you visit our national parks, bring a vehicle that respects the natural world and other visitors. Well, I've now told you what not to do when you come, But let me also tell you what you should do. Those of us who live here have two main requests. Firstly, that you will make the most of your visit by being fully present while you're here, savoring each minute of being in this special place. We hope you will set aside work and the stresses of home and allow yourself to be renewed and restored in the presence of the beautiful wild. We also hope that you will fall in love with the natural world as we have. We all need nature, much more than we often realize. It helps us refocus and reconnect with the things in life that are most important. At the same time, the natural world needs us. It needs for us to care, to recognize our interconnectedness with it, and it needs for us to take steps to ensure that it remains protected. Well, I hope you learned something, or at least enjoyed watching this video. I sure appreciate all of you. Thanks for watching. I'll see all of you next week. To help you prepare for your visit to Rocky Mountain National Park, visit my website, rockymountainnationalpark.com. For hiking guides, calendars, coffee table books, and more, visit rockytrailpress.com. And when you arrive, be sure and stop by my gallery in downtown Estes Park. It's called Images of RMNP.